Welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. This is a podcast that is for therapists who own a group practice, because I think it's important in that role that we want to show up as leaders, whether you want to use the term CEO or the guide in your group practice. And we want the tools, we want to show up authentically and lead well. And so part of what we're doing in this podcast is talking about some of the things that it takes in order to lead well, some of the characteristics that we need, and also learning from other group practice owners of what it looks like to be a leader and how they have stepped into that role. And so today we're going to be talking about you as a leader and identifying. I really wanted to talk about what season is your practice in right now. And a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves to show up differently or to be a leader of a 20-person group practice when we're actually at 2, or we haven't caught up to the fact that we're leading 15 to 20 people and how that changes us as a leader. And also ourselves, our leadership skills, our practices go through different seasons. And so if you were listening back in December before we ended season 1, I've been talking about wintering and what that looks like to slow down, to take care of yourself, and to find ways to rest. And so if we take that concept of winter and kind of think about how that applies to the seasons of our group practice, how we want to show up as leaders in those seasons, that's what we're going to be doing today. One of the reasons why this is important too is there's a danger that can be seen in comparing our practice to others. So I started with using that example of maybe we're leading as if we have 20, but we only have 2, or vice versa. A lot of times we look at other group practices and we think that's where I want to be, or why can't I have a practice that looks like that? What are they doing that I'm missing? And we don't actually recognize the stages or the seasons that they have been through, or maybe what they're in right now. And so I want you to take into consideration where you and your practice are right now, and let's leave the comparison or the desire to be where another group practice is. And understanding how your practice's season changes how you lead, how you want to show up for your business, for yourself, for the people who work for you in there. So if we take the concept of 4 different seasons, so whether you want to call it spring, or I guess starting with winter, spring, summer, fall, or one of the terms that I'm going to use today are planting, so kind of starting with spring, growing, tending, and harvesting. And so as you think about the season that you're in, let's identify what season that would be. So if I'm talking about a planting season, that could be somebody who is just getting started with a group practice. You've been in private practice and now you're adding people on. You're excited. You're building foundations. You're creating systems. You are mapping out how this is going to be. If I think about a friend of mine who has a huge garden, she maps out her garden every winter and plans out how much of this plant she wants and what that looks like. So we are planting. If you are in that stage, you are typically new, but maybe you're not new. Maybe you started a group practice and you're planting because now you are realizing that you need foundations and systems. So maybe you thought you were in growing or tending, but actually you need to come back and look at what it looks like to plant. And then the other stage could be growing. So you have a demand that is increasing. You're getting more clients through the door. Maybe you got it, getting more therapists who are interested because you've created a great work environment, and you're looking at hiring people, expanding. What does growth look like in a stage or a season of wonderment in some ways and momentum moving forward? Another season would be the season of tending. And so you've been through planting, you've been through growing, and now actually it's a time to stabilize, to sometimes slow down. It might feel like slowing down, but just to maintain, sustain. And so you're defining or stabilizing the different roles in your business. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be as a leader? Who do you need in place in order to continue the growth that you've had, maintain the culture that you want, strengthen the relationships that you have in marketing or within your team, or your visibility in the community? So that is the tending season. The harvesting season is you're starting to reap the benefits. You have all of those systems in place. You've got a great team. Pretty much things are rolling along. You're refining rather than creating. You may be starting to step back a little bit or shift how your leadership is, who is taking over some of your responsibilities, because now you don't have to work quite so hard. You don't have to generate so much. So you're harvesting, you're reaping the benefits of all of those other seasons. How do you identify which season you're in? So maybe you have a bit of a glimpse in the way that I described them. Here's a couple of things that you want to look at as you determine which season are we in, our practice, what season am I in as a leader. Look at your team dynamics. Are they going well? Are they things that are, moving along? And so you're kind of harvesting the connection that's been built or the structure that's there, what that looks like, how people are interacting with each other and with you. Looking at how it feels for you to show up for your team and interact with them, what kind of investment you are putting into them. Another pointer or understanding of what season you're in is look at your revenue patterns. So are you in a place where you are growing and you're needing to add income or explore income opportunities? Are you in a place where we're stabilizing, we're maintaining. And so we're not really like growing the bottom line right now, but we are maintaining, and it's in a good and healthy place. How do you want to keep it there? What do you need, or do you need to grow it? You want to look at your personal energy to identify what season you're in. Are you kind of looking for, okay, I need to breathe a little bit. I need to sustain and to slow down a little bit. And so maybe I'm in the tending season. Or one of the examples that I was just using is last year was the year of the snake. 2025 was the year of the snake. I just found out. And so that was a season, turns out for me, it fits very well, of shedding skin. And so if I were to look at 2025, I would say that was maybe a little bit of harvesting and tending, maybe a mix of those two seasons. And now as I look at 2026 is the year of the horse, and I pictured this fiery horse and let's go get shit done and make things happen. And so I imagine that would be a season of growing. But there's a part of me that wants to be moving forward. I want to be a horse on the beach. And so there's momentum, but there's pleasure and there's beauty and there's movement forward, but in a way that doesn't require quite so much energy. And so where are you at in your personal energy? How does that fit into planting, growing, tending, or harvesting? And then another way to determine which season you're in is how often are you reacting versus how often are you planning? So if you are reacting a lot and having to put out fires or feeling like I don't have the answer for this, you may be in the planting mode, even if you've got an established business, or you may be in the growing mode. So I don't quite have all my systems in place. I'm not exactly where I want to be. There's a little bit of fire under me, and so I am reacting versus I'm planning, like I'm looking forward. Who do we want to be? How do we want to show up? How are we growing what we've already made happen? And so I am in planning mode. And one other way to say that is how much are you working in the business versus on the business? And so if you are working in the business a lot, you are in the planting and growing stages more than you are the tending and harvesting. If you are able to spend more time working on the business, you are more in the tending and harvesting than you are in the growing and planning. So what does leadership look like in each of these seasons? How do you show up as a leader? You are going to look at what you're prioritizing. So if you are in the planting season, you are going to make decisions based on what's next. What do I need to have in place in order to start this group practice or to grow it? Where does my time and my energy lie in order to make this business what I want it to be? If you are in the harvesting side of things, then the decisions to prioritize look different. Who am I prioritizing? What am I putting my time into? Where do my priorities lie? To use that word again. If you are in the growing season, you are prioritizing, really honing in on what are we trying to grow, not just reacting and trying to make everything grow at once, but you are looking at where am I being intentional? Do I need to be marketing more? Do I need to be hiring more? If I think about expanding, how are we expanding? How do I prioritize what our goals are? Don't go for shiny object syndrome, being intentional about what that looks like. Where you invest your time is something as well, in how do you want to be a leader during the season that you're in? Sometimes when we're in the planting and the growing season, that means that there is time away from family, or there's time away from seeing clients, or it feels like you're exhausted all the time because you're investing your time everywhere. And quite often when you're in the tending or the harvesting season, then where you're investing your time looks different. You are investing more in team, or you're investing in yourself as a leader. You're getting coaching, or you're learning how to do supervision, or you are, really investing in the culture of your group. You also want to look at what are some of the common traps that happen as a leader in each of these stages. So coming back to that time thing, when you are planting, sometimes the trap is that it's all about the business, and I can't give my energy or time elsewhere. And so we suffer physically or relationally during that time. So make sure you're watching out for some of those things. think one of the things that I would really encourage you in all of these stages as a leader, one of the traps can be that your business becomes your identity. It's who you are. So whether you're planting and you're all excited for what's coming, you're growing because look at what I've done, you're tending, you're like feeding this garden, it's growing, or you're harvesting. Where is your identity? Who are you as a leader? Who are you as a friend? Who are you as a learner, clinician, all of those things. So you want to be aware of some of those traps that can happen. Sometimes we get lazy too. If you think of another trap is when I get into the tending or harvesting, okay, I've done all the work. Everyone else can do it. So I can sit back and watch it all happen. That can be a trap as well. This is still your business. It still requires leadership. It still requires tending and growing in different ways. But be aware of that. Be careful. Make sure that you keep your eyes on that. What are some healthy boundaries for each of these stages? So if I was to go back into each of these stages and say, here's a boundary that I think Lisa needed, or that I think some other group practice owners might want to do. So in the planting stage, the boundary would be, for me, I wouldn't be working after 10 o'clock at night, and I wouldn't work before 6 o'clock in the morning. I was so excited to get this business going and all these problems that needed to be solved. It felt like creation, it felt like creativity, and it was very fulfilling. So I want to clarify those boundaries a little bit of it's okay to feel fulfilled by doing that. Notice where it feels like, is this sustainable? Is this something that I can keep doing? If I kept doing it this way, would I resent anything or anyone that I'm doing this with? In the growing stage, so the demand is increasing, you're starting to hire, you're starting to expand. Some of those boundaries that one of those boundaries that I think I would recommend is identify your ideal therapist. Just like you know who you want to work with for clinicians or for clients, clinical clients, you want to identify who is the best fit for your team, for your personality, for your leadership skills. Quite often, we think we want people who are shooting stars and are going to take this business off and grow, when actually what we want are the rock stars, and they're the ones who are going to last. Or we want a mixture of the two. So that boundary would be understanding what's the mixture of what I want in this as I'm in that growth stage. For healthy boundaries in the tending season, when you are stabilizing roles, when you're strengthening culture, is really identifying, what do I need to give up? What can I give up? Why am I wrestling with passing on some of these roles or responsibilities? And creating these boundaries that feed a good culture, that feed you as a person, as a leader, and also play to your strengths. So identifying where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and setting up the roles and the culture to fit that. In harvesting, I think just coming back, what's a healthy boundary in there is recognizing who do I want to be as a leader in this time of kind of stepping back or shifting my role and my experience with this group, with this business. And so how does that look? Understanding the time commitment that you want to do, the energy commitment. And like I said before, like, don't just peace out without being very clear about how that looks, what people can expect from you, and what you can expect from them in order to do that well. Why does your season matter as we go into 2026? Why are we even talking about these 4 different seasons? there's a couple of points in there. It reduces pressure and the pressure to be somebody or something or at a stage that you are not. There is permission to be in the growth stage. Maybe you're 5 years in and all of a sudden you're back to now I have to grow again. Why aren't I at this other stage? So knowing that season, clarifying it, naming it, and having the healthy boundaries in that specific season reduces the pressure to be something or someone else. It also helps you stop chasing someone else's goals. So if you are in a tending stage and you're looking at someone who is growing, and you're like, oh, that could be fun, or maybe that's what I should be doing. If you recognize, no, actually what our business needs is for me to stabilize. And that can be with 2 clinicians on your team, or that could be with 25. It doesn't have to be what somebody else is doing. Recognizing what your business needs, what you need in there, and identifying that season that you're in. It also allows you to focus your energy rather than scattering it. So if I am in a growth season where I am hiring and I am expanding and I am growing my business, maybe I'm not actually at the point where I want to create other roles because it just takes my focus away or the intention or the planning around that growth, because now I'm creating this other role and how do I pass this off? Maybe it incorporates both. You're going to identify that. But if you can really hone in on what is your season right now, it frees you up. It gives you freedom, flexibility, and an authenticity in so many different ways, primarily as the leader. So my leadership challenge to you as we wrap up today's episode, name your practice's current season. So is your business, your practice in the planting season, in the growing, in the tending, or are you in the harvesting season? So you name that. I want you to choose one leadership action that fits that season. So what's something that you want to move forward in the next 30 days as a leader in that season of your practice? I hope that you found this helpful. I would love to hear what season you feel that you are in, what your season you feel your business is in. And let's chat about that. You can email me or you can reach out through the website. And I look forward to connecting with you next week when we get to hear another group practice owner's story. Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.
This is Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Lisa Catallo's Empowered to Lead podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more shows like hers and to grab your free gift from the gift fold, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com.